Yes, indeed. It's Dr. Yemi Oke, as you've seen in the welcoming slide that joins us next. Is well versed in both in energy law. He's written several books also on the subject. Good to see you again, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's start with this one. I mean, 10,000 megawatts, even though they promised us 20 for the first 4 years, but now they say we could do 10,000 in 4 years. But then the 2,000 in 2016, distributable one, do you think that's feasible?
Well, thank you very much once again. I'm cautiously pessimistic. Let me put it that way. It is doable if certain things are done, but I have my doubts because of the existing structure. One, the president really, of course, means well for this country, but is not going to do it alone. 10,000 megawatts before the end of his tenure and 2,000 megawatts in 2016 is, to me, a tough one and somehow unrealistic. Suleiman mentioned the issue of evacuation. Objectively, and I mean technically, we have installed capacity of about 18 to 20,000, and that's for a fact. But only an insignificant fraction of it is evacuated due to very weak, dilapidated transmission infrastructure. And if you need to put the transmission infrastructure in shape, it's going to spend a lot of money. Government has not budgeted any reasonable amount of money in the current 2016 budget and the midterm expenditure of 3 years for power. The reason is that government has no business in power because power is, let me say, 90% or 100% privatized. The GENCOs are privatized. DISCOs are privatized. Transmission, which is under technical services contract with Manitoba Hydro, is also concessioned, a form of privatization.
So they have
so
no
government
input?
is not really doing anything new. I want to assume that government might want to depend on the private sector, and we have a serious issues there. Serious issues there in the sense that we're still talking of, okay, cost-reflective tariff, because they said for me to produce the power, we got to pay X, Y, Z. The labor is saying no. And the NRC is also not helping matters. They seem to appear...
We're paying already.
So, unfortunately. An impression is being created that NERC is somehow anti-people, which shouldn't be. It's also in the statement of the president that they should work towards consumer satisfaction. The law allows them to increase tariff. The law is also careful to put conditions precedent there. Before you increase tariff, do A, B, C, D, E, F. Though you can increase tariff, but you must comply with the conditions. Another worrisome trend is such that most of the power plants are gas-fired. As we speak, Nigeria does not have a legal framework on gas. And I'm saying it again. There is no gas law in Nigeria. Closest to it was Gas Reinjection Act, which says, oh, we are flaring, we're going to stop gas flaring at a particular year, oh, we are further extending it. There's no law regulating gas. I mean, of course, this was confirmed by one of the group directors of gas, former then on gas.
But there's a gas component in the proposed PIB at the time.
But it's not a law yet. So there's no law on gas. Yes, we depend on gas essentially for power.
What would the law on gas do? Sorry to interrupt you there.
The law on gas will have created a kind of regime that allows for production of gas exclusively for domestic consumption and gas pricing for purposes of power generation.
Are they going to legislate prices?
But you're aware.
They can regulate that.
But you're aware there's a policy or an agreement between those, the producers and those that will be getting the gas so that they can get at a reasonable
price. That is the problem.
Because pending when the PIB comes in place, they didn't just wait to say, okay, we don't have the PIB in place, but there's an arrangement between the gas company and the government wading in to see that they get this even with the surge in price of gas.
To the extent that we call it an arrangement, it is flexible, subject to market forces. I was here in this studio. The MD of Nigeria LNG says, yes, we'll buy gas at competitive prices. If you pay 2,000 naira for gas, I can pay 20,000 because I need it to export. It's a question of demand and supply, and who's ready to pay? Highest bidder, because they're in there to make money, and we can't stop them. It's reasonable, but we must have a kind of structure that is not enforceable. It's not legally enforceable. It's not law. At best, okay, gentlemanly agreement. Okay, because Nigerians need power. Okay, I'm going to give you gas, but this is how much you're going to pay. And in this case, I say, oh, I can't buy gas from this guy to give you power. It's expensive. I said you're going to pay this amount of money. Tariffs.
It comes back to tariff.
It should come back to tariff, cost-reflective tariff.
So why is it that we don't even understand it when we talk about tariff?
So
with all this dynamics, knowing that
this is
yes, that this is quite expensive for the man who is in the business.
So when it's a serious problem, I must tell you, another worrisome trend. It will have been doable if the president says, "Oh, we're going to deploy renewables." As we speak, there is no single law on renewables in this country. There's no single legislation on renewable. I've challenged them. Who are the experts working on renewable acts of law or policy for this country? No. Yet, this is a country, even hydro is renewable. It's a form of renewable energy. So we can do hydro, do other components of renewables. There's no law regulating renewable. How much do you do it? Who's licensing it? Another problem is because it will be doable if the government says, okay, I'm going the way of decentralized energy option, like the policy for housing. It's saying federal government will provide certain amount of housing units, each of the state government will provide certain amount of housing units. That's decentralized structure. But for power, no specific statement is made as to that, because under the Constitution, power is concurrent. If the president had charged the state government to say, okay, each state should generate 2,000 megawatts off grid. When we say 10,000, it's not, of course, we generate about that. And the reason why we generate up to 10,000 is that we have about 3,000 max up and down from grid generated power.
But what's the evacuation capacity?
Of course, that's the evacuation capacity.
10,000.
We have distributed generation. That the amount of power that is generated and distributed about 3,000, sometimes up to like 4,000 and drops. Installed capacity well over 10,000, because a substantial amount of the power generated cannot be evacuated. We also have a number of embedded power generation, which is this are small scale power generation, and we have a lot of captives for the industries, those who generate power for themselves. And also, your generator and others, they are also a form of
power generation. Are they part of it?
They are part of it. If you're going to cap them, they are off-grid generation.
But government is not planning based on my generator.
So that's what I'm saying. If the president has said, okay, we plan 10,000 megawatts